Welcome back. You're watching Morning Express, and my panel is very eager to give their sentiments on this question. They're also asking you, what are your thoughts on Sonko's move to appoint Anne Mwenda as Nairobi Deputy Governor? And we had gotten sentiments on whether my panel feel as if this will sail through, or whether it will be shot down, or if it's relevant even. And I was on to you, Kevin Osido. What's your take on whether this is something that is going to go the distance?
Three things. One is the political implication.
Right.
The MCAs know that if they do not give Nairobi County, rather accept the nominee, chances that we'll have two things. One is a caretaker committee, or have the Speaker act for 60 days, and then leading into an election for which all of them would therefore have to go back to the ballot. And so you begin to ask yourself, as an MCA, the agony I went through, the good things I went through while campaigning, the bad experiences I had to go through, do I really want to go through them? What's in it for me? So how do I navigate around this and either maintain the status quo, so we are okay, I can earn my salary, I can do my work as an MCA, I can continue to run my businesses, but then what's the state of this kind of the ideal scenario of Nairobi that we have all been trying to describe, which unfortunately brings me to the second issue, which is how we vote, and we've been talking about it.
Yes.
The people who probably voted for this governor, and we know the shenanigans around how he rose to be a senator and then to be a governor, really probably do not care around political party interests. They probably do not care around these vetting issues. They just want to see their issues being dealt with, not necessarily even service delivery. They just want to send a text to the governor, I am wedding next Sunday, do you think you can give me a limo? And miraculously, a limo actually shows up, and you're okay, and you have this historic wedding, and that's really the kind of person that you want to see as a governor. So your interest is not in ensuring that laws are being passed and that you have a very nice policy for the county government to deliver, and that Nairobi is rising and is shining. The third thing for me is interpretation of what currently the context is, which is therefore to help us also pick out the gaps which we have identified both in the Constitution and also in the various legislations that support the Constitution to be able to work, like the County Governments Act, so that then what do we do when a county finds itself, like in the scenario that Nairobi County found itself, where you have no governor and you have no deputy governor. And so how do you therefore deal with those issues? And unfortunately, we are talking BBI, but I have read the report, and even within the devolution thematic area, we have not been very deliberate to pick at some of the teething issues that counties have had to go through, because Nairobi, many counties have gone through what Nairobi is going through, only that the governors were much more smarter, and they were much more interested in ensuring that their counties stand and that they are able to deliver services to the people, which therefore brings me to the last thing on this, which is service delivery. The people of Nairobi really were interested in who becomes a governor, and so yes, you got yourself there. But if you are this miracle worker, governance will require that you now operate within a set framework where there are laws, where there are policies, where you are working within a team, and that you have to be a team player, and that you have people who help you, like chief officers, like county executive committee members, CECs. You have county assembly that is supposed to help you pass your budget. You have a framework which is called, for instance, the County Integrated Development Plan, which sets out the plans that you have, therefore shielding you away from doing ad hoc things where a governor gets out of the office and is going to respond to some issues at some health facility because you have a CEC for health or a CEO for health that you do not trust, for example. But that now you have to rise to the occasion and realize that people are actually looking at you, and not just the people who voted for you, but that even Nairobi, which is a seat of power, the president would probably be much more interested in you and how you're helping him to meet his aspirations for that particular county, which is therefore Nairobi, as opposed to your interest in who gets what tender, which I think has been one of the biggest challenges that this governor has had to go through, because Nairobi has, and we have been told many times, the number of cartels that operate in this city I think the former CJ has talked about it. We have had former governors talking about it. Many stories have been written around the cartels. As a governor, you have to ensure that you navigate properly. And I think that so for the governor to be able to move this county forward, he needs to rise to the occasion to realize that people are no longer interested in those political shenanigans, but that we want services to be delivered, that education, ECD is working, infrastructure is working, markets are working, the county assembly is approving the right budgets, and that laws are being passed to favor the wider majority, whether they voted for you or not. And so moving forward, I am really looking forward to how this is going to play at various levels, from institutions, constitutional institutions like the DPP. He's come out to call this null and void. We are looking forward to seeing how that pans out, and whether he, as a party to this case, really has a right to make that kind of interpretation. Mheshimiwa has talked about the Supreme Court and the several other appendage courts and their interpretation of this issue. I think that will be very important, because then we also have to look at how then we play the game, which then will also influence how the county assembly is going to play its game politically. Because I think for me, and where I sit, two things are therefore important: the political interpretation, which also should inform how we vote actually tricks, and begin to look at who does a political party even nominate and give a certificate to, and how then, what are the expectations of this person who is elected from the political party? Because Nairobi County has had very many challenges, from change of leadership of the county assembly to now what we are seeing. And I think it's important that this is really brought to a stop so that devolution is seen to be working.
Yeah, and I love that you brought the issue of democracy up, because Mike Mbuvi Sonko did not fall from the sky to Nairobi. He campaigned, he did what he did, he promised what he promised, and the people called him the people's governor, and they voted him in, right? So is it, when you look at the people that were voting in, typically these are communities that feel marginalized, they are disenfranchised, and they were not getting what they needed from the leadership. So and of course, they decided this is someone who understands that, and I'm going to lead to give him this particular seat. Then we have the other level that he has pointed out to, of the political parties that feel like this individual suits this ticket. So should we be shifting how we vote? And of those of us who sit at home and just say, they'll vote and we'll take whatever they give us, should we now be changing our minds on how we vote so that we do not end up in this type of mess?
Let me say this, Trix, that when earlier in the show we were discussing about the patriotism tax. Kenyans need to start feeling that whatever choices they make,
they come back to you.
Yeah. And it's as simple as that. It's true. Governor Sonko won with a considerable margin. And so, because you're saying there's a constituency that really came out for him, and now we are halfway through the term, is it that their issues are halfway dealt with? You know, that should be the question.
Yes.
Yeah, so that now we see that there was, there was reasoning to their choice. And that should be really the problem, or how we need to look at it. And I think, by and large, as a country, we're also growing. Let us look at things openly, and let us not wait until, because 5 years is a long time. If you feel that Chege Mora is not performing as expected, call him out as early as possible, so that maybe he was in some slumber, he'll wake up and start working. Or you may just push him to do something that can give us direction. If not, there are many other possible avenues. But then the most important thing for Nairobians and also as Kenyans, we need also to take things very seriously. The same way you take things when you take your kid to school and you're very clear who's going to be the chairman of the Parents Association's board. Or in your estate where you are very clear who becomes the estate chairman, or, you know, those small things is what compoundedly gives us a direction on how you choose your leader. But as it is now, because we're in a situation where we are not at an election, it behooves the people who hold offices, like the office of the president, like to come out, find an interpretation that works, so that Nairobi can no longer. We need to get out of these stories and what should happen if this happens. We need to be clear that, and this is 2020.
Right.
Let's save the year as much as possible. If Governor Sonko is not going to be allowed to act, and even from his own house, then let's know what's the direction and we move towards that direction. If he's going to be given whatever space, let us be told by a competent court or whatever it is, so that now we get on to the business of delivering to Nairobians. And also, because if Nairobi collapses or slows down or is in autopilot as it is currently, then the whole country feels the impact. So the earlier we sort out the mess, and people should not wait for, some other magicians to come out. And let people come out and I was on the spot here when we were on the break, and you guys, what are you doing? And let Kenyans tell people, and tell, what are you doing? We're expecting this and this and that. So that now not everything should be in terms of a game,
Yeah, it's too much drama and very little delivery. What's your take?
Trix, I think we definitely need to review how we vote.
Yes.
And when I say we need to review how we vote, I'm not referring to the entire country. During the conversation you're having at the break, I remember mentioning that most of the rural counties did a very good job of selecting their leaders.
Yes.
And they are reaping the benefits of the same. In Nairobi County, for some strange reason, the elite voters, I should not even be calling them the elite voters, because maybe they're not even participating in the elections, have left the responsibility of elections to a cohort of people in this county who do not know what they need to be looking at when they're voting for a candidate. And I may get in trouble for these sentiments that I'm making, but I have to say this.
Yeah.
You have people who said, tumepigia an educated person, kura, wacha tujaribu mtu hajasoma, And for all intents and purposes, that consideration was wrong.
True.
You cannot say that you're going to be picking someone who doesn't have an education, doesn't have an understanding of what they need to do for you at the county, and hope that they're going to serve you because you identify with them, you have the same struggles. For the record, those who thought that the current, the governor who is now facing wars, Sonko, shares their struggle, were wrong. Because you think this governor shares your struggle, but you live on less than $2 a day. He doesn't know whether he spends $1 million or $2 million in his day, depending on what he needs to deal with.
Yes.
So you're not at the same level. You cannot be. When you're going to buy your vegetables from Mama Mboga to cook with ugali, he's eating at Intercontinental. Sometimes spends the night there because he could not go home, it was too late.
Yeah.
You can't afford that. So some of these are considerations that people should have made when they were seeking leadership. I'm a Christian and I like going to the Bible for reference.
Yeah.
Many times, the person who was appointed into kingship in the Bible was maybe not necessarily the person who was most educated compared to other people, but it was definitely the person with more wisdom.
True.
Now, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that the governor for Nairobi County does not have wisdom. And therefore, those who elected him made a mistake. Moving forward, we need to be very keen on what we look at to pick our leader. Apart from that...
This decision he's made, is that one of the ones that have demonstrated a lack of wisdom?
Of course, this is definitely a lack of wisdom. I mean, if he was wise, Osido mentioned it.
Right.
In October, when Kenyans were pleading with him to choose a deputy, he should have chosen a deputy. If he was dealing with the wars with his party, at least by January of 2018, we should have had a governor. He was dragging his feet. If he was actually exercising wisdom, that is the time he should have picked someone who's extremely loyal to him to become his deputy, so that whatever happens, whether they choose to get rid of him or anything, he will still have control over the county. Right. But of course, he didn't think through some of those political considerations that he needed to make.
Right.
So for me, I think we must call, first of all, the elite of Nairobi to begin participating in elections. And not just participating by funding, but participate by also choosing the right leaders. Okay. Number two, we need to engage in educating the voter. And it's unfortunate that it's Nairobi that is needing education, because the rural voters were very... and I think it's because they have accepted their shortcomings, and they have decided, you know what, this person out of all of us seems to be standing tall amongst all of us in terms of wisdom, in terms of knowledge of what needs to be happening. So let's give them power and hold them accountable.
Right.
Now in Nairobi, we need to make that decision. We then let ourselves have a governor who we do not recognize, who we do not respect, and then he starts appointing CECs, and we refused to take those positions because we knew that working under him would be a nightmare. So we called this to ourselves, and it's time for us to resolve this. I am also calling on Kenyans not to focus on the politics of this. And Mahesh, I will have to say this, that if it comes to disbanding the county and going back to the elections, let's do it. Confident members of the county assembly will go back to the electorate and get voted back in.
Because they were doing the work.
Yes, but let's sort out this county. We cannot have a county that does not have departments functioning. We cannot have a county that doesn't even have direction. You know, I mean, if Mahesh is here telling us that planning is dead, what are we saying?
Right.
Are we running a county without a plan, without a vision, without, you know, is he running the plan that Kidero had? And if so, why did we elect him and not have Kidero in this seat, you know? We should be asking ourselves some very difficult questions and confront the realities of that. And the political considerations that Jubilee made must also be reviewed. They were surviving. They were trying to survive and therefore did not bother on whether or not this guy was going to deliver or not. They had their bets on Polycarp, but he left a couple of months later.
To sort of balance the equation.
We cannot afford to have that kind of game being played with Nairobi again. We cannot. They can play those games in other places, but not in a place like Nairobi. And it's even unfair to say other places. Generally, we shouldn't have those games being played in the whole country. Finally, the senator for Nairobi County has called on the president to convene a meeting of the Council of Governors to resolve this problem. I think that is the wrong proposal. This matter is affecting all governors. Trust me, their interest in this issue is to make sure that when the corruption case is now identified in their counties, they survive. So this conversation should not be held by them. It should be held by the National Assembly and by the Senate, together with the stakeholders within Nairobi County, to resolve it for Nairobi, but make sure that we don't have a repeat of this madness in any other part of the country.
Nonsense. Now, we are closing the discussion, so I'd like you to start with you, Mr. Osido. Give your closing remarks on the whole issue.
On this Sonko issue, Sonko should stop being dramatic. This Vipindire via Facebook, you know, live, nini. I think those have been taken over by events, and he needs to really now get down to business.
Yes.
Just be like all of us. If you're facing charges in a court of law, behave like every other Kenyan. You've been told to step aside, just step. You will not die. I know people have said in the past, I would rather die than resign and step aside, but they never died. They're still alive up to now. Well, you want to be this champion for young people, then just show us what you would do or what you'd expect the young people to do when they find themselves in a similar state like yours. Number two, is that Stella has constantly reminded us about the good book, and somewhere it says, to whom much is given, much is required. You have been given Nairobi City County. This county is not like any other, by all spheres of indicators and parameters. You cannot compare Nairobi to any other county. This is really a lot. And Kenyans have trusted you as their governor with all this much. Please, why don't you just consider that as a very noble opportunity and duty to deliver. Number three is really a rallying call, therefore, to the citizens of this city. The Constitution has given us a lot of power. One, by sovereignty, and two is that we have the opportunity to do petitions, memoranda documents, and even call, you know, the governor to order by by organizing an election for this county. We can push the president, if that is what it will take, to be able to consider Nairobi a different county, and so that things are done properly, so that Nairobi is able to set the example. So let's go out there to write our petitions. We do our memoranda documents and submit them to the clerk of the assembly. And at the assembly, they allow us to sit at the gallery, isn't it, Mheshimiwa? Let's go there and ensure that whatever we are presenting are actually being read, and that the security officers at the assembly will also not be sonkoik to stop people from going to access, you know, discussions around what is being discussed, which is of interest to them.
All right. Mheshimiwa, your closing remarks.
My closing remarks, number one, this being a new year, very early, Kenyans should go low on the drama bit. And with all due respect to the media, also don't feed us too much of these dramatic things that are not adding so much value to Kenyans' lives. So, So much as I know they make his sales, drama sales, but also let us also be cognizant that we have a country to build.
Yes.
And we have a huge task of making Nairobi tick because of where we want to go and how we want to grow the economy. So I wish that we cut down on the drama. If there needs to be a decision to be made about the deputy governor of Nairobi or about how governor currently is, because it's not been removed yet. If he has the powers to do whatever he has to do, let it be clear, so we move on to the next level. If it's not, then earlier on, let's just know it's not possible. Then again, in the process of what Stella was talking about, Article 192 of disbanding, if that is the route, then fair enough. Let us know why, but then again, it's also a very expensive route, because again, putting a whole 85 wards into an election in Nairobi with 2022 ticking is also difficult. And the
PPI.
Exactly. So if that is not the route, how do we define the exceptional circumstances we are facing ourselves in? And let, if it is the president, to make a bold decision and say, this is what I think, that maybe we can carve out caretakers, Kennedy Osid was saying, and run the executive, if that is what they want to do as at now. Or is it the speaker who's going to be given, find a very clear way of how we need to move so that we cut out the clutter and take Nairobi. I mean, there are more issues, the roads, there's garbage, there's, on-source revenue that we need to fill, and we think how it's going to go up so that we can do more for Nairobians. So the earlier we're able to deliver, work out those sticky issues now, the better for us to be able to proceed. Otherwise, we'll come again and then, we entertain people. And the business of leading and governance is not about entertaining. It's about taking the country to the next level.
Okay, Stella.
I think I must add my voice to the call to end the drama. And this is for general politics in Kenya. We are coming into a new decade. Let us just come into this decade deciding that drama is not one of those things we're going to be having in our politics. It has wasted our time and wasted a lot of our money, and we don't need it anymore. Number two, in this entire conversation, number one, we must prioritize the corruption case.
Yes.
In the end, we are saying we started a battle last year that must be brought to fruition. And for this reason, if there's any case that the governor of Nairobi has to answer, then he should answer. Number three is...
And all the other governors.
And all the other governors, not just the governor of Nairobi County. All the other governors, if they have cases to answer, they should answer, and they should actually be able to give back to Kenyans what they owe. If they are found to be corrupt, then of course they should face the music. But apart from facing the music, once you have been accused of corruption and under valid cases in court, it basically means there is possibility that actually something went wrong. Now, whether you are responsible or not, you are the overseer and the buck stops at you. Now, since the governor has been asked to step aside to allow for the case to be completed, one of the things that he must accept is that the instructions from the court are binding. And for this reason, he should stay away from the business of the county. Any attempts to try and do anything are actually showing that he's trying to influence the case, and it's not good for him. For this reason, the members of the county assembly, the speaker of the county assembly, and all the stakeholders in the county should be very bold in the moves that they make now. The county will not be held hostage because one individual has been asked to step aside. Whatever decisions that need to be made, this is my call to the members of the county assembly, including Mheshimiwa here, my call to the speaker of the assembly, my call to the president of this nation, is that we need to make decisions that are going to give Nairobi someone to continue running that office, whether it's going to be the caretaker committee, whether it's going to be the approval of the nomination of Mwenda. I don't know what it's going to be. But whatever the decisions need to be made quickly, because it's not about Sonko. It's about Nairobi County and the residents of this county. Finally, Sonko needs to apologize to the residents of Nairobi for letting them down, and for not delivering on what he promised to deliver to them, and for putting us through what he's putting us through now. If he had made wiser decisions, we wouldn't be here today.
Absolutely, and that is Stella Agara, who's the Governance and Youth Specialist. We've had Kevin Osido, who's the County Governance Watch, and Chege Mwaura, who's the Gara Ward MCA. Thank you so much for your sentiments and being part of this discussion. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have international news on the other side.